Hi, welcome to the THC show. My name is Neil Magnuson, and I'm your host this week. Last week I was a little under the weather, and I want to thank Glenn Wells for looking after the show for me. He did a great job, and we continued to progress in getting information out there. This is a show where we try to talk about the unfortunate truths in our so-called free society and give some people some hope that maybe we can change things for the better and some mechanisms for doing and making those changes. My guest today on the show will be Glenn during the 420 session, as always, and Jerry Martin's going to be here to help us out with the Martin Medical Moment, and we're going to have Marion Allaart, the Executive Director of Vandu, come and tell us all kinds of things about life on the downtown east side and trying to advocate for people's rights. So very excited about that, and excited to have you along with us on the THC show here. You know, one of the main focuses of this show is on cannabis and all things concerning cannabis, but mostly the approach by governments with respect to allowing or not allowing cannabis in our world. You know, cannabis is a miracle plant, and there's no justification whatsoever for ever having prohibited it. It should never have been a crime in the first place. It is one of the most useful and beneficial plants on the planet. We have a symbiotic relationship that has been going on for many thousands, tens of thousands, a lot longer than that, because our endocannabinoid system, our interior system of creating these chemicals that are found on the cannabis plant, the cannabinoids, has been developing in the vertebrate and us on this planet for millennia, for a long time. But for thousands and thousands of years, we've got evidence that cannabis was in the pharmacopoeia of many different cultures around the world. It was used as a religious sacrament for most of the early religions that are now the 2,000-year-old mainstream religions. If you go back, read some of Chris Bennett's books and look at the history of cannabis used as a sacred sacrament, as a medicinal herb, as a fiber that people used for clothing and all kinds of other things. We have a very long history of using this plant, and it's one of the most productive things that we've found in nature to help us with all the different things that we need help with. In the United States, for example, when colonists were sent over here to occupy this land, and they were given land by the federal government. There was conditions on getting that land. They had to grow cannabis, for example. It was a mandatory crop from 1619 to 1798, where everybody that got land from the federal government in all of these new forming colonies around the states was growing cannabis for all of the different value that it had there. In fact, the only reason that cannabis was prohibited and that the corporations moved against it was because it is so valuable. It's the utility of cannabis that makes it a big threat to people that have competing patentable products. And that's been going on for a long time. There's not only no justification for using tax dollars to try to curb or restrict or prohibit cannabis, but in a world where we're supposed to have freedom and public servants, these public servants should be facilitating our access to these things that help us. And cannabis, of course, is one of the best. And what this whole thing about cannabis has managed to do is expose the corruption of those people that are charged with looking after us, the masses of people. And you can see by, how prohibition rolled out and the amounts of money that was spent. I mean, it's so ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, I was at the BC ferries recently, and they've got smoking bans all over the place. Obviously, the large corporate groups that want to monopolize the sale of cannabis and restrict people from accessing it in other ways are flexing their muscles. And you can see that they've even gotten to the ferry corporation. They've got guards walking around with dogs sniffing the cars lined up to get on the ferry even before you're on the ferry. There's no smoking of any sort anywhere. I'm not an advocate of smoking cigarettes. I think it's a dumb thing to do, and I wish people wouldn't do that. But I am an advocate for people having the right to do whatever they want, and it's none of my bloody business. And if somebody thinks that smoking cigarettes is what they want to choose, well, that's their business. That's up to them, and they could well be right. As far as I know, how the hell do I know? But I do know that I don't like bothering other people about what they're doing if they're not bothering anybody else. That's not my right. And it's not the right of a society to be bothering other people who are not bothering anybody else. And this whole non-smoking thing in public has gone way too far. And I'm not an advocate of cigarettes. I think we shouldn't allow that. If we were going to ban anything, that'd be a thing to ban. But I'm not in favor of banning things, because banning things doesn't work and carries with it a whole bunch of other things that happen when you start banning stuff, like disrespect for government, like doing things in ways that are a lot less safe, dangerous, and intrusive on the public. All the things that happen that you supposedly were trying to solve by trying to prohibit something comes back and bites you and is way worse than what you ever could have accomplished by not trying to ban it. Prohibition doesn't work. We should have learned that by now. And yet here we are, we live in a society where we have somehow empowered these public servants to be masters and on behalf of minorities of people, infringe on the rights of the majority of people. I don't think people should be standing smoking cigarettes around other people that is bothering. You shouldn't do that. I mean, people should know better than that. We should all just know better than that. We shouldn't have to have government people hired to make sure we don't do that. But at the same time, if you want to step away from the crowds, go where some isolated part of the parking lot of a ferry terminal on a day where the wind is blowing and you're not going to bother anybody, then it's not the right of these people to come up and start bothering us and bothering people that are doing that. And certainly with the cannabis file, that's extremely evident. And that's the one where they really need to get out of our business and leave us alone. We're not going to bother anybody. And if we are, then people will speak up about that, and we're all reasonable people, and we'll stop bothering people. But our world is not as it's presented to us. It's not as I was told it was as I was growing up. I'm older now, but I was told to respect the police and the government, and that God put those people there, and we should just obey and do as we're told, and everything will be all right. And that wasn't the right message. The right message should have been, well, we really can't trust these people that call themselves our public servants. We got to keep our eye on them. Obeying rules is awesome and great, and you should do it whenever it's reasonable to do that. But you shouldn't obey rules where it's unreasonable and where people are just exercising their bully muscles and intimidating people just because they want to have that kind of power over people. We shouldn't teach our children to put up with that. None of us should put up with that. We could have a bunch of public servants that recognize that their job is well, I guess I got to do this if I want to shut that off. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I didn't turn my phone down as much as I should have. So I'm sorry if that interrupted things. But so anyway, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, that these governments of ours need to be held accountable for what they do and how they treat us, and the laws that they make and the money that they spend that is our money. And for too long now, they've gotten away without being accountable to that. For too long now, they have gotten us used to being bullied by these people and used to compromising on our rights and on our freedoms. And we should not be compromising on those things. We shouldn't take half freedom. We should demand full freedom, that we get the right to do or not do whatever we want to do unless we're harming somebody else. And that's the freedom that has been fought for by our forefathers, that has been promised to us, that's been given lip service to by all these politicians as they try to get our votes. But in reality, they're not serving us, they're serving the corporations. And that is so obvious with respect to how they have so-called legalized cannabis. They've legalized cannabis so that insiders, friends, rich people can get licenses from the federal government to produce cannabis, and they're the only ones that are allowed to produce cannabis for any public marketplace. People still have the right, because of court challenges, to grow for themselves with respect to medical reasons, and in the provinces that allow, the federal government has allowed people to grow up to 4 plants for themselves, which is a ridiculous limit that is not there to protect anybody but these big corporations that want the monopoly on selling weed. And they're doing a really lousy job of selling weed to us, because at least those of us that care about the plant and that care about proper access, and to those people that need access for medical reasons, those people are really not being served at all by legalization. In fact, they're being dumped off on the side of the road. Any daily user or people that care about the plant or understand what cannabis should taste like and the effects that it should have and what chemicals should and shouldn't be used on it and those types of things, are not being served by these government producers. Yet our government has put in this model that only allows them to produce for people and for the stores that sell to people. So the stores aren't doing very well with respect to the market that is out there in the cannabis community. In any case, they are still selling cannabis, and the LPs are still selling cannabis because they have some captured markets. They've got the medical people that can't access any other way. They've got the soldiers who get prescriptions from their doctors to use cannabis, and really their market isn't even domestic, it's international, and that's what they care about. So there was a lot of kerfuffle just recently about Canopy Growth terminating about 600 positions in a couple of Delta greenhouses that they had there. And I know that our community has a bias about those things and is all excited because, look, Canopy Growth looks like they're going down the toilet, and yay, they've laid off people, even though that's not cool that they laid off people, because those people had families to feed and were counting on jobs. But they don't care about that, just like the whole legalization doesn't care about all the thousands of people that were employed in different dispensaries across Canada that now don't have their jobs as well. So there's a lot of displacement of people when they're putting profits over people and what have you. And so here with Canopy Growth, I need to tell you that they're just trimming some fat. It's not that they're going to go bankrupt anytime soon. This is a huge international company. They've got over 5,000 employees. They've got they're valued at billions and billions of dollars, and this is just trimming some fat because they do have more cannabis stockpiled than what they've been able to sell. They did project that they were going to be able to sell more, but this particular company is not in any trouble. There are, however, other companies that are in trouble that don't have a good enough cash flow to keep them going, and we're projecting a lot bigger sales than they're getting, and they had sold a bunch of stocks based on those projections, and they are in some trouble, as they should be. The whole thing needs to be in some real trouble here, and the whole thing needs to be collapsing. We're still in prohibition times, unfortunately. The CSU, the Community Cannabis Shutdown Unit, this group of Nazis that's been using our tax dollars to go around and restrict and shut down people's access to medical cannabis. They need to be ashamed of themselves. John Horgan needs to be ashamed of himself for allowing that to happen. John Horgan told me personally, our premier in British Columbia here, told me personally, prior to being premier, but not long before being premier, that if he got to be premier, that he would lead the charge in providing reasonable access to medical patients with storefronts. And yet they have done completely the opposite, and shame on him for doing this. So the CSU needs to be disbanded. The whole model of penalizing people with criminal penalties for growing, producing, and supplying outside of the government regime needs to stop. The prohibition has always harmed so many people and continues to do so. Here we are in Peterborough. They've just had, according to Freddie Pritchard, I love the man, 588 dispensary raids since so-called legalization, wasting our tax dollars to interrupt and disrupt this dispensary that was there, trying to help people get access in a world where there is no storefront access to medical cannabis that's legal here still, and that's disgusting. The Judge Phelan in the Allaart case declared that storefront access is crucial and at the heart of access for medical patients, yet our governments, in great disrespect for that court ruling and so many other court rulings, demanding reasonable access for people, continues to shut out the medical patients, shut down these dispensaries, use our taxpayer dollars to do that, and that is disgusting, and shame on them for doing that. And they're busting other things as well that have to do with drugs, and they should get the hell out of all people's lives when it comes to drugs, because prohibition only makes things worse. And so in Niagara, a huge bust. There's been an investigation going on for several months. Results in a huge cocaine, cannabis, other drugs involved there. Lots of guns involved there. So, I guess the good news is that should be the end of it. A big bust like that, you'd think that there won't be any more, guns on the street and hard drugs that we can't trust. And that's not a safe supply. So we got that one covered, right? That's the end of it. Well, unfortunately, that's not the end of it. We've been hearing about these busts for all all of my life, throughout all of the prohibition on drugs and now into legalization, the same damn thing is going on. They're criminally misusing public funds. They are abusing their positions of trust, and they think that they're doing something by busting these places that have to exist because of prohibition. If there's a supply, there will be a demand. They know that, but they don't care. In fact, they count on that because that illegal supply is what they make their money on, and that's how they get it, is from our tax dollars. So there they are, spending tens of thousands of dollars again to bust an operation that does absolutely nothing to stem the actual tide of that type of thing that's going on in our world. Because busting a place like that, taking a few pounds of cocaine off the street is nothing. It's like standing under Niagara Falls with a little teacup and catching some water and thinking that you're making a difference in the flow. You're not. But they're making our money to do it, and they're hurting people in the process. And this is all in the name of saving people and helping people and public servants just trying to, keep people from getting addicted to these dangerous drugs, and shame on the drug dealers for dealing them. Well, shame on the government for causing an increase in demand and a guaranteed dangerous underground market that will supply those things, because they don't allow for a safe supply for people to get what they need or what they want, or and we are people that take drugs. All people do that. We are people that are looking for different things to do. We're living a life here, and it's not theirs, it's ours. And everybody, almost everybody, wants to experiment with things, wants to do these things. And for those that really wouldn't or don't, well, once the government steps in and says you can't have it and you can't do it, well, now everybody wants to do it. So leave us alone. Stop getting involved in trying to do anything but educate people about the parameters of those things, like a good public servant should, and stop wasting our money to cost us all kinds of ruined lives and wasted money in the process. This has gone on way too long already, and yet here we are, it's still continuing. I was born into a strict religious family, couldn't wait to get my freedom, and turned 16, bought a car, got out in the world, thought, now I'm a free spirit, I can do what I want, except you can't. And it's not freedom. It's free to obey. It's controlled by people who have ideologies that aren't the same as yours. It's about people who have greed and money agendas that are driving all of these things. These are the people that are in charge because they're the people that want those jobs, and we can't trust them. And that's the bottom line message here, is that don't tell your kids to trust the government. Tell your kids they can never trust the government. We can never trust the government. They shouldn't be trusted to be in charge of letting people get access to cannabis. They shouldn't be in charge of stifling and discriminating and all that which they do with respect to business, and especially people that are cannabis culture people. That our governments need to really be taken to task. They need to have their feet held to the fire. They need to have limitations on what they can do. They need to be transparent, so we never get to find out later who they met behind closed doors and why they came up with all these rules and where they're spending our money. We should be able to see every meeting. We should be able to see every decision. We should be able to hear every phone call. There should be MP watch on our telephones that we can dial up anytime and see what our MP or anybody else's MP is doing. And we should make sure that those guys are punished severely if they decide to hurt Canadians and the public to protect the rights of a few corporate, elite, greedy, fascist bastards that want to be the ones selling you shitty, crappy, poisoned weed, and punish you with your own money with the criminal law if you should dare grow for yourself outside of their system more than the 4 plants they allow you to grow, or buy it from somebody else. Well, sort of saved by the bell at Fort 19. We do need a balance in our life, and I get a little upset about these things, and for good reason. I hope you're all getting upset with me, because the world is not right, and it's costing all of us a lot. And when they're interfering with our relationship with nature and this herb, and using our money to do it, I hope we all get really upset about that and do something about it. So there's my rant for the day. Don't be a passenger on this trip of a life that you got there. Be a crew member. See what you can do to make the world around you a better place. All you own in life is how you feel. And I'll tell you, feeling good comes from doing good, comes a lot more from doing good and helping other people feel better than it does from feeling good because somebody else was stepped on and you managed to profit from that. I'm a big believer in win-win-win all the way. And if we all lived win-win lives, and if we all tried to feel better by helping others, listeners, then we'd have a much better place than we do. But we're fooled by these people that want us to live in fear and have an alcohol-based angry world. It's 420, everybody. Light them if you got them. And I'm really happy that Glenn's here with me in studio for our 420 session as always. How you doing, Glenn?
Good. Happy 420.
Happy 420 for sure.
Yes. And you talk about smoking in public. Chris Enns just had a little confrontation with the police. They were outside smoking in an alleyway, and somebody called on them. I've seen a few posts about that. Yes.
Not cigarettes.
No, they were smoking a joint.
Yeah. But this was about weed.
Yes, and they were amazed that people were still calling the cops about people smoking weed. Yeah. Right outside. So that when you were mentioning that public thing, I was thinking about that. Yeah. So,
people are still calling the cops on people for weed.
I know.
I'll jump the gun a little bit with a little bit of a CSP report in that there's a CSP that's just started up in Halifax.
Yeah.
Chris Backer and some other wonderful people there have been gathering donations
about
and
that,
getting them out. And, these small towns have a little more of an issue with getting away with that than we do here. Unfortunately, you'd think the government should help you, right?
Yeah.
So somebody called the cops on him for giving weed and edibles out to people that are trying to
but
get off of the hard drugs.
But he's protected by the law because you can give up to 30 grams, right?
He's having those conversations as we speak.
I know, yeah, because the law says that you can do that. So why can't you give it to people who don't have it, right? That's what the law says.
And if the law says you can't, the law is an ass and should be broken in any case. Yes. Because any law, in my opinion, that gets in the way of helping people in their life and hurts people in the process is of no force and effect in my world. Yeah. I'm a free citizen here. I answer to myself, and if I'm harming somebody else, then I'll answer to them and to you as well. Yeah. But until that time, get out of my way, leave me alone. Yeah. So he's had to go and have conversations. I guess the city council called him and brought him in and talked to him a bit, and or was it the police chief? I think maybe as well.
I don't know. I didn't see any following posts about it. Yeah.
Him and some other people went in there and spoke truth to power.
Yeah.
And that's the path that they're on now in doing this. So good on them for that.
Yeah.
So but people are still calling the police on people for smoking weed.
That's silly. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be at the Calgary Cannabis Expo.
Good for you.
Yes, they've been invited me out and gave me a place to stay, so I think I'm going to drive out there.
Nice.
And go and visit. It's on March 28th and 29th in Calgary there. So
let's make a note of that.
Yeah, tickets are only $10. I'm sure I can afford $10 to get in.
So tell me again the dates.
March 28th and 29th. It's the Calgary Cannabis Expo. And the location will be at the BMO Center at Stampede Park. And $10 $10 a ticket, yep.
Cool. We'll cover that again at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And it's the Calgary Cannabis
Expo. I do believe it's run by the Calgary Cannabis Club.
Nice.
Yeah, they're great people out there. So
they've been doing good work in the face
they have been.
tyranny for a while.
Fred Furry and Joe Furr and all those people. So they've offered me a nice place
Keith
to stay.
I wonder how he's doing these days. I heard he's a little under the weather there, Keith. I hope you're doing fine, man. Yeah. He was kind of the leader there for a long time. The elder statesperson.
Yeah.
Did some great things with him. Some great actions with him. Texas, and his crew.
Yeah, I played some Texas Hold'em with them.
I see. Yeah, he looks like he'd be a shrewd poker player.
And I got to meet one of the other guys, and we brought him some ice cream cake before he passed away.
Grant Krieger.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now.
No, damn. I shouldn't say that.
I think it was Pat. I think it was a Pat. I do think it was a Pat. So
now I'm really hating how long it's been since I've been in proper touch with those people. We're only across the mountains. But,
you want to come to Calgary? Thing I'll drive you.
We will.
Yeah, maybe the weekend.
Maybe they'll invite me. We'll see. I just got so much going on in.
Yes, I know. But I just figured I'd offer you.
It's really difficult for me to get to other events.
It's a couple of weeks, right? So we can leave on a Thursday, get there by Friday. It's only a 10-hour drive. So I can do that in one day easily. Weather shouldn't be too bad at the end of March. The road should be okay.
We will see.
Well, hopefully, we'll see. Yeah,
we'll see.
You don't need an invite from them. I'm sure if I said I was bringing Neil, they'd be quite
Well, I like an invite.
Okay, all right. They're probably watching right now because I shared this into the group.
I see. But, no pressure to invite me because, I got a lot of stuff going on in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And, in fact, the next couple of weeks is is some critical stuff going on with our new society that we formed, the Serious Hope Society.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
The umbrella society now for the Cannabis Substitution Project.
That's good.
I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the show too when I do an update on that.
Lots of stuff coming up.
But, boy, lots of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And what's going on with you with the CannaMatch? How's that?
CannaMatch is going good. Last week was good.
I see you had some Kind products there.
Yeah.
I'd like to give those guys a plug.
I love Kind Selections. They're really nice people. I've always enjoyed their stuff.
You're a dabber for sure, right?
Well, I'm a pot smoker before I was a dabber because we weren't doing dabs in the 80s.
How much do you dab?
I don't know. Probably a couple of grams a day.
Oh, yeah, eh?
Yeah, probably.
I see.
Depends on the day.
I rarely dab. It's just always been too much for me.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know why. It just,
to me, sometimes if
down.
you're sitting there watching your movie, you don't want to stop and get the tray out, cut your butt up, roll it, you throw a dab in the pipe, you do your dab, you're done, you're medicated, it's that quick. So,
Well, what I do is that when I roll a joint,
yeah.
I typically roll 4 or 5.
Yes.
And then I'm good for a little while.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is a bit of a strain. I got arthritis in my hands.
Yeah. And the machines, they are somewhat all right. I used the rolling machine when I hurt my fingers. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do. Pipes are good. I went through phases in my life, different times when I'd smoke different ways,
I added a new dabber to the groups yesterday. He took him out and helped them pick a pipe, and
nice.
He bought an e-nail off Alabama or whatever it is there. And he's, I got it today. I'm coming over. Can you help me buy a pipe? And we all got him a pipe and a carb cap, and we did the first hoot at my house, and he was like, yeah, this is so much better.
I met a gentleman today that had never smoked weed in his life.
Wow, and you smoked weed with him?
No.
Oh, okay. No. I love it.
Well, why did he say that? I forget why he said that. But I said something, because he was going to check my computer.
Yes.
And I said, well, at night I watch Anton Petrov, this astrophysicist.
Yeah.
And, what they're finding out on a daily basis now. I mean, we're launching new rockets every few days here, almost every day, but every couple of days for sure. There's new rockets going up. There's new equipment going up. We've got, probes that are billions and billions of miles away. We've
out
got,
there,
rovers running around on Mars and shit, and all this stuff we're learning. And it continues to boggle the mind.
Yes.
We're finding out shit that doesn't conform with the theories that we have in many ways. There's things that are happening. And so, anyway, he wants to check the computer to see what's going on. I said, well, when I'm playing movies, it slows down. And this is what I'm watching typically. So we put that on there. I said, this is really cool stuff. He says, oh, no. He says, I don't get stoned. I said, well, you don't have to be stoned to watch this. In fact, I think watching some of this stuff will probably make you stoned.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like the vastness of time and space and all the time. And
I've heard that Elon Musk is trying to put some satellites up that'll connect the world on the internet, so you'll have internet everywhere in the world. But apparently his satellites are a little bit lower orbit than the ones that are already there, and it's been causing a little bit of a problem, apparently.
I see. Well, you know what was causing a problem with my computer?
Oh.
It's just old.
It's just old.
It's now not able to handle. It's not that the parts have diminished,
but
the parts that are in there, which were more than fine 10 years ago for everything that was coming on the internet, are now not able to process as quickly because all these movies and all the special effects and all this stuff. He said it's that dual core processor or something.
Yeah.
And it heats it up to the point where it slows everything down, and that's what's going on.
Wow, it's time for a new computer.
I guess.
It's like a car. Once you drive it off the lot, it's not worth as much. When you take your computer home and then open it up, it's obsolete.
Well, I don't know about that.
Right?
I agree,
there.
It's lost a lot of value, and there's other newer things on the market. But I am in so awe of the automobile. Always have been. It really strikes me that we have something very special going on here on the planet that human beings have never experienced prior to the last 100 years.
I've been debating if I should go like a hybrid car next or electric.
I don't know, but to be surrounded, safely by all this metal and nice seats, comfortable seats. I got the stereo system, got the air conditioning. The windows are power operated. It floats.
Change your song on the steering wheel. I got those.
I got
buttons.
a ticket.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, you got a ticket.
Oh,
there we go.
I got a ticket coming back from the island the other day. Stuck in a traffic jam in West Vancouver, coming down Taylor Way. Took me over an hour to get from the top of Taylor Way down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Sitting at the bottom, I did something on my phone. I don't know what it was, but I touched it. And there's a cop knocking on my window telling me that I didn't get a ticket for being on my phone. I said, I wasn't on my phone.
Nope.
He says, I saw you touch it.
Yes.
I said, yeah, so what? I touched it. I touched my radio too. I touched my rear view mirror too. I touch all kinds of things in my car.
Yeah.
Am I going to get a ticket for that too?
Yeah.
Oh no, but you can't touch your phone. It's a law.
Yeah.
So then it's a stupid law.
Yeah,
I said, you must hate being a policeman right about now, eh? You got to tell me that I'm going to get a ticket because I touched my phone?
Yeah.
What kind of a world are we living in? I've been for an hour sitting in a lineup. I can't even check with my family or my business to see what's going on. What kind of a world is this? Like, who are these people? $368.
Take it.
I'm going to fight that one, I'll tell you.
There's a girl in Vancouver that's on Global News. She says that she'll help you. She's one of the lawyers that's been doing this because that's sort of like a gray area.
Oh, man.
With these things, there's been a
few... I said, I'm a responsible driver. I'm a good driver. I would not talk on my phone while driving down the road. I mean, I know better than that. I mean, I've seen accidents too.
Most of the people who have complained about it have had their ticket taken away, recently.
Well, I'm going to complain loud and hard about it.
Yeah, because
that's
was it in
ridiculous.
a holder?
Was it? What do you mean?
Did you have it in your hand?
It's in a holder on the dash.
In a holder.
I wasn't. All I did was put my finger on it.
Yeah, you'll win.
I better win. They better stop doing that. And having that cop stand there like that, is hiding behind the pole there, is ridiculous.
Yeah, they do that.
I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
They need to be able to catch the people that are not paying attention to what they're doing when their car is hurtling down the road at at the ridiculous speeds. That's a weapon.
Yeah.
And people should not be paying attention to who they're texting
No.
when they're driving. And we've proven that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But that's how the people where they get to stop the people. Not when you're sitting at a red light or stuck in traffic.
I know.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. That's the
oh
gray area.
my
People
God.
have been winning their cases, though, so you hope that way. I've seen at least a couple of them.
Got me going so much for having a nice 420 session.
Well, we're doing good. We're at 200.
Well, I want to keep it light. You know how many people I just got mad out there in the audience again?
We're at 212 viewers right now. Did you know that?
Are we really?
We're doing good today. I think that's our biggest crowd we've ever had so far.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's good.
I never look at those numbers. I do see every once in a while that there's thousands of people that look at it eventually, which is really good. I hope that my guests are able to help me pass on some good information to people, and we can keep people updated on what's going on in the world and what we can do about it.
We wouldn't have 200 people watching us if we were doing a crappy job there.
Well, we do take this session to try to get a balance.
And you do a great
as we
job.
always talked about, we want to keep it a little lighter. Because I get mad about stuff here.
Do you, Neil?
Man, oh man, I'd be out fishing, if I wasn't angry. Thanks, Glenn. I really, really appreciate it.
Neil,
we'll do it again next week.
Yes.
Beauty.
Take care.
All right. 420 session is important because balance is important in your life. And before you do lots of things, you need to contemplate those things. Many things in life are serious. I always say life's too serious to take too serious. But, we talk about hurtling down the road in a weapon like that. I mean, that's dangerous business, and there's lots of things that are important. And timing is crucial, and second thoughts are crucial. And sometimes stopping to have a little puff of the sacred herb and the magical vapors is exactly what you need to think twice about what you're doing or to think about what's going on and how you want to address that. These are serious times that we're living in, and there are real serious issues with the people that are being harmed by our government. And unfortunately, our government is blinded by greed and corrupt groups that have obviously bought their attention, because this whole so-called legalization of cannabis is not anything like what we asked for. We are not getting the legalization that we demand or that we deserve. And the ones that are really being left behind in this particular move by the government, disgustingly, are the sick people in Canada, the patients, the people that were using cannabis for medical purposes and had been doing so for quite a while in the face of criminal prohibitions against that. And that is the worst thing about this so-called legalization, is these non-medical government stores can't handle the competition and don't want the competition from the medical dispensaries. And the medical dispensaries were the ones where people really had a place to go and get cannabis in many places across Canada. Even though they were unlicensed and illegal, there was hundreds of them, and that was because the courts had stood behind these people in saying that there needs to be reasonable access. People were hurting and needing this, and so brave people were opening dispensaries, and that's what really forced the government's hand in coming up with a way to sell cannabis to people, because there was, like I say, hundreds of these storefront dispensaries that people could go into. Some of them were recreational, most of them, many of them were medical, in that you had to have a doctor confirm a diagnosis to be able to access cannabis to treat the symptoms of that diagnosis that you have. In this segment of the show, we talked to Jerry Martin, who's a dispensary owner from Saskatchewan that had a dispensary there for 4 years, helping people get access in very profound ways with a large clientele. The majority of the people in the town that he serviced there were clients of his, and then the government tried to shut him down, and we've talked on the show many times about how impossible that is, to be shutting down people's access to something that's helping them in their life and going to give them relief from their medical conditions. So Jerry did as anybody reasonably would do, and that is he ignored that shutdown order, continued to operate his dispensary, hoping he'd get grandfathered in and accepted into the new legalized world that looked to be happening. And instead they came and busted his dispensary, shut him down, seized his property and his things, and have been persecuting him ever since, trying to get him behind bars in a 3-year-long battle now to even get his day in court. It's just disgusting, the waste that's going on here, and there's no victim ever caused by Jerry, and so many people were benefiting, yet here we are, and we're still going at this. I have Jerry with me in studio, as I always do, and I'm very thrilled that he comes in and shares his journey with us. And without any further ado, Jerry, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. I'm about to sneeze.
Uh-oh. Into your elbow. You know, everybody stay 3 feet away. Wow.
You like?
I do. So, how goes the case?
It's been about 3.5 years now.
Well into the 3rd year. I remember that anniversary.
I don't know.
The ball is in their court at this point?
Paul said he was entering some new evidence. He was quite happy about that. I don't know what that is yet.
I guess, and the prosecutor is probably happy about that too. He gets to book some more hours for looking at papers, and you know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the file must look like at this point. Now we're into what, your second prosecutor?
It's looking like that. We're switching.
Robin Neufeld chickened out, took his money and ran.
Yeah.
Made a bundle, I'm sure, on the hours that he booked on your behalf at our expense.
And I'm sure the stocks he owned. Well, maybe he's lost some now.
What a disgusting part in history this is, with the way that us as people have to fight our governments, and our governments are fighting us. To do what? You know, I mean, you didn't have any victims. You had a whole lot of people that liked what you were doing.
Yeah, a lot.
So, wow. So your case will be heard when they decide still at this point. It's in their court to set a date and then tell you about that. That's kind of the next thing, yes?
I believe so. I think we were waiting for Pat's case there to be moved up to High Court.
Speaking of Pat.
Yeah, he just said he was coming or something. I've seen something
on
Facebook.
But I'm going to talk to him right now. We're going to call him up.
Oh, okay.
And see what's going on, because his case is somewhat important to your case. So we got to go over here, and then we go to there, and then we go to there. Uh-oh. What the hell did I just do here? Oh, there we go. Haha. Typical. So let's see if we can get him on the phone here. Okay, I guess I'll let them do that then. And they're going to record the audio on it. This is supposed to be a secure line that we're talking on.
Oh,
but they want to secure. They're just telling me they need to turn on my recorder on my phone. Now they need my permission to record it.
Yeah, that's pretty secure.
Yeah, I think the more secure ones are the less secure ones.
You're securing their future.
Now they want me to give them permission to take videos and pictures. It gets worse from here. And now maybe I can make the call. I hear it ringing. Put this right here.
speakers facing out.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Pat, is that you?
It's me. How you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. Once I figure out this technology, it takes me a while.
Yeah, I was watching you guys struggle for a bit. It's okay.
Not you guys, just me. If Jerry had this equipment in his hand, it would be like boom, boom, done. He knows exactly what I'm doing. I hand it to him whenever I'm in trouble, and he's standing close to me. So, anyway, we're just talking about that Jerry's case is hinged a little bit to yours. Are you able to talk about that at all and what's going on with your case?
I can talk a little bit about it. I just can't talk about specifics, I guess. I talked to my lawyer about that. So, just a couple of interesting things happened. I guess I went to court for the case, and the pretrial weighed pretty heavily in our favor. And they basically gave me a publications ban, so I can't talk about anything about it anymore.
That means no, I won't. I won't ask you. Go ahead.
and they actually scrambled pretty heavily in the courtroom. And since then, that's a month ago now.
Right.
They actually haven't even given me a court date. We actually phoned them yesterday, and they still don't know what to do with us. They haven't given us a court date. So
right.
I think they're trying to avoid us. They're trying not make us go to the high court. I think that's their plan here, is trying to make us go away. And we're going to do everything we can to obviously not go away.
Right. And Jerry's case is kind of tied to yours. Meanwhile, these guys are booking hours every day on our expense to do all of this. So what else is going on in your life? You had some stuff going on that you went to check out on. Tell me some of the things you're excited about these days.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We've been working with a lot of First Nations from coast to coast, as many people know. I was just out on the East Coast the last couple of weeks. We were in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Checking out the local scenes on the First Nations, what's going on out there. They have a pretty remarkable scene going on in New Brunswick, in contrast to the New Brunswick Cannabis program they're trying to run there.
Right.
The New Brunswick Cannabis program, which is obviously like a province liquor board control style place, is very stale, very, very unwelcoming. I went into those places and checked them out just to see what they were looking at. And but from there, we were able to see what was going on, and it's not a very good scene for obviously the legal scene. We all know that. But for the First Nations, though, Woodstock, New Brunswick just opened up on Monday here.
Nice.
Tobique, New Brunswick, they've been open for a while, but we just went in there and visited and had a chat with some of the council, and we went same thing with in Woodstock. We just kind of went in there and offered some advice and offered some of our 2 cents, if you will.
And these are not government. These are not government licensed stores. These are just First Nations.
Correct. Yeah, these are non-government stores. These are First Nations owned, community-owned stores.
They're handling their own supply.
Yeah, their own supply. The supply is supplied by craft growers. In Canada, obviously they're very big supporters of the craft products, and the First Nations and the craft industry are working hand in hand together in many provinces now. It's showing to be a very successful combination and team. We all knew it would be. Obviously with these stores. The main thing that we wanted to do was to bring in the standards, I guess, if you will, to be up or exceed what the province and the government already wants. So these stores that are on these First Nations that we're dealing with specifically, they have great security measures. They have great camera systems, features for everybody to feel safe. They have great craft supply, tested cannabis. They have grown by proper people who know what the hell they're doing, and it's priced compassionately for people to actually be able to afford cannabis and be able to get their medication.
Do they consider themselves medical?
Yes, the ones that we're working with specifically are medical.
Right.
And of course, we see all the different ones that are out there. There's kind of rec stores on First Nations as well, if you will. It just depends on.
Would they have high dose edibles? Is my big question.
Yeah, correct. They do. Yeah. So all the different nations we went to throughout New Brunswick and Nova Scotia this past week, they all had high dose edibles. They all had extracts. They all had high quality flower.
Cool.
Some obviously, and everybody knows, some places are better than others, and that's just how it goes. We're obviously trying to get everybody on the same page as much as we can. Some of the First Nations allow their individuals as citizens to run their own stores and shops, if you will.
Right.
And some First Nations are taking it into their community's hands and running a community ran store, if you will. So the proceeds go back to the community. So it's just a matter of what community that we're dealing with across Canada. What community it's in, if they're a community-run store or if it's an individual-run store. But overall, it seems to be a lot better process and a lot better system than what's currently going on in the government system, for sure.
Very good. I'm very thrilled that many of these groups are showing the way to a proper or more proper legalization, for sure.
Well, first of all, the proceeds go back to the right hands of the people that need it. They're not going to foreign investments, not going into Guatemalan fathers that are being slaved to grow in factories and stuff like
right.
we just saw with Canopy last week type thing.
Right.
But moreover, I think they're catering to patients more. The education process is there, like the training standards. Some of these places that we're dealing with, they're getting their employees, the bud tenders, if you will, trained with proper courses and with knowledge, so that they can actually help and assist and have some kind of assistance with patients.
Very cool. And hopefully there's some communication going on back and forth between many of the Indigenous groups across Canada, and there can be models designed that will provide a proper source and freedom and all the rest of it that the government stores certainly aren't offering. Very thrilled that that's being taken on that front. I don't have too much time. Jerry, you got any questions for Pat or anything you want to say to him?
Not really. It sounds like we're waiting.
You're waiting and seeing on the court side of things, and moving forward, as best we can on all the other fronts. So,
Yes.
anything else quickly before I wrap it up, Pat?
No, I appreciate it, guys. I just want to know, let everybody know that please go support. If you're not supporting, Jim in upstairs in your apartment building or your best friend type thing, definitely go out and support these First Nation stores. They have a really good thing going on, and they're going to be the team that helps us with craft cannabis to fight this government battle, for sure.
A wonderful message. Thank you so much, Pat, for all your work and joining us on the show.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. Yeah, he's of course facing charges for what he was doing in Saskatchewan there with having a store and providing some access for people, and when his case goes forward, then that'll have a lot to do with what happens with your case. In the meantime, you guys just put in time, feeling like you're tied to some millstone.
Yeah, that's for sure. I can't leave anywhere.
Yeah,
So,
crazy, eh?
yeah.
So quickly, what else is going on? Your microdelics, is that still?
Yeah, it's still going. I thought I ran into some snags last week, but things are good. It's definitely not in the CDSA, which is a bonus. So there is some Food and Drug Act could be issue, but I've worked around that now with the lawyers, so I've just put disclaimers on there, not claiming it.
And this is about microdosing with different types of hallucinogens to help with PTSD and addiction and depression and all those sorts of things. And there's a study in the works, or getting in, being put into the works.
Yeah, so we're working heavily on that with Dr. Richard Knowles out of the Delaware Psych Research Group, and hopefully Beckley Foundation. They're not on board yet until we get this finalized. And Crowd Science as well, so they're going to fund it. They're eagerly waiting to raise all the funds for it.
And in the meantime, the anecdotal evidence is piling up, more and more testimonials.
Yeah, for sure.
People.
Yeah, there's all kinds of evidence and different studies coming up. And I got a new product coming out. I've got the 1P-LSD microdosing kit, and then I've got a 4-ACO DMT coming out. Is really it's a psilocin prodrug, so it just converts into psilocin in the body. So
I see.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jerry. I appreciate you coming on and keeping us up to date on what's going on.
You should keep getting me to come out.
Carrying on, my friend. And we're with you on this as best we can be. I know that it's hard to feel like that.
I'm getting
we'll see
Every
what
week's a little better.
It's a journey. And in the meantime, we are managing to still educate a lot of people in the process, and they are giving us a platform for doing that. And we'll just make the best of it, and that's all we can do. So, very cool. Have as much fun as you can.
All right. We'll see you now.
Unfortunately for Jerry, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And I mean that. And it's really tough to fight that battle, for sure. I've been able to get glimpses into Jerry's journey to date, and how he was able to give back to his community in a way that he was feeling so good about, and then to be shut down by his own government and treated like a criminal, and now having lost most of his possessions and having spent the last 3+ years fighting. He's been over 30 times in the courts. I think it's over 40 now, back and forth trying to get his day in court. And as you heard him say, they're just trying to avoid all that, and it's really horrible. because this is just people wanting to feel better. This is people that are struggling in their life that found some relief in cannabis. And there he was in small town Saskatchewan, and helping out so many of his community. He had about 1,000 members at his dispensary in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, and there was about 1,000 people living in Whitewood, Saskatchewan during the 4 years that he was there. Some were from out of town, around in the surrounding area, but most of the people in his community were finding help, and through their doctors. He had a very strict dispensary there, and it's really a shame that this happens. Here in Vancouver, of course, it's a much different picture. We have a very visible community of thousands of people that struggle daily with all sorts of issues brought on by poverty, by trauma, by life experiences. And there's been much ado about it for a long time. The prohibition against drugs, the stigmatization of people harms so many of these people profoundly. They struggle in their lives with employment and in relationships. They struggle to simply get by day to day. And in trying to do that, they seek refuge in many different ways. And some of it works for people and some of it doesn't. But they're preyed upon by people that offer relief in many different forms. And then they find themselves preyed upon by governments and police that treat them as criminals because they're poor and because they're struggling. And it's really a sad statement on our country and on our governance that we would allow for the suffering, the sick, the poor, the disenfranchised, the marginalized to suffer the way that we do. It's a real black eye on Canada and our governance. The people of Canada are compassionate, they're tolerant, they're friendly and they're nice and they're polite, and we want to help people. But our governments get in the way of that, and our governments allow for policies that hurt people in profound ways. And it's been going on, like I say, for a very long time. And here in Vancouver, because it's so visible, groups have formed to kick in where government wouldn't, to provide services that were necessary to help people in their lives and to keep them alive, for that matter. And we are very fortunate here to have a wonderful organization that advocates for people who are oppressed by these government policies and by their life situations. And I've been very fortunate for several years, for the last 15 or more years, to have been associated with this group. We call them the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users. And they do some amazing work. It's an organization of peers. It's run by the people that it's serving, and it's overseen by Coastal Health. And there's some people that are there to help a little bit, but for the most part, all decisions are made by the people that it serves, for the people that it serves. And they have a saying that says, "Nothing about us without us." And they are given a voice in this organization. And one of the fine people that have been helping this organization for a long time has become a friend of mine and an advocate for what we do through Vandu with our Cannabis Substitution Project. Marion Allaart has been a trooper and right in the trenches and dealing at the very heart of these such serious and devastating issues that is there happening right in our city, right in front of us all. She's been there at the heart of it. And without much further introduction, Marilyn is the executive director of Marion of Vandu. Marion, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking some time from
Pleasure.
your busy schedule.
Thanks for having me.
Well, happy. So where were you born?
Where was I born? Well, I was born in Java.
In Java?
In Semarang, Java. It's in the south and the middle of the island.
I see.
Yeah.
And how long did you live there?
A little ways away from the volcano. Pardon?
A little ways away from the volcano.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably good. And how long were you there?
Oh, not very long. Less than a year. And then we emigrated back to Holland, where my family were from.
I see. And
Just
you
'cause
grew up
the
there?
political situation was a little dicey, and they had youngsters, so they didn't want to take a chance.
Right. So back to Holland. And
Yeah.
and so did you grow up there and go to school there?
No.
No?
We stayed there for about a year. My parents spent most of their lives in the East Indies,
Right.
not in Holland. Well, they got educated in Holland during the war.
And where did
In
you get
fact,
educated?
Here in Ontario.
In
I
Ontario,
went to
in
the
Canada.
University of Windsor.
I see. So you ended up here in Ontario. How was your school? How was your school life? Did you were you a rebel?
It was an
were
education. Mostly I had to get trained in social things, and I learned to drink and swear at university, and
Right.
to my parents' chagrin.
And what did you take in university?
Social work.
I see. Did you have any relationship with cannabis during this time? Or did you,
One occasion where I
Just
took
one
it
occasion.
kind of by accident,
right?
but had lots of effects of it. It was not a bad experience, but
Right.
I wasn't for Warren, so.
Right. And so social work was your field, and did
Yeah.
you work in that in Ontario, or did you come here for
Yeah,
that?
I worked in Ontario and I worked in Nova Scotia.
And then you ended up in Vancouver.
Ended up in Vancouver because I worked for an educational corporation, and I came here to take a job there.
And how did you end up at Vandu?
Well, I've known Anne Livingston was
Anne
a founder of Vandu, and I've known her for about 25 years at the time I took this job. And she said, "Oh, come to Vandu, come and look." And I also know Laurel. Can't come up with her last name right at the moment, but she said, "Come on to Vandu." I go, "Well, not today, and maybe not tomorrow either." And I was kind of reluctant to go. I don't know what I expected to see.
Right.
I was a little ignorant, actually. And so then I went one day, and they wanted to interview me for the executive director, which I didn't think I had much to offer, but Anne convinced me I should come and be interviewed. And I was very delighted by the interviewing process, because there were members and there was people from all over, not just Vandu, and they all had really interesting questions to ask me, and I saw that work was going on there.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff.
It wasn't like Haight-Ashbury.
Yeah, they're not all just
smoking.
hanging around doing drugs
No,
and trying to get
It
away
was,
with it.
an
They're
office and a board table and
a lot of
people
stuff
were
on the agenda all the
involved
time.
in a lot of projects. and,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot on you guys' plate there. So how long ago was that?
That was early in the year 2009.
I see. So
Yeah.
over a decade now.
It's been over a decade for me and my colleagues. Yeah, we all started around the same time.
So what does the job involve for you?
Basically, I think I was hired to be the go-between between the board of directors of Vandu and staff and the membership and VCH.
And
So there's a lot of
VCH,
reporting
that
that goes
Coastal
on.
Health, same thing?
Vancouver Coastal Health, that's
Same
right.
thing. And they
We're
provide
always
funding?
grateful to have funding from the health authorities.
Well,
And-
that's how you operate, right? You really couldn't do it probably otherwise without funding from Coastal Health.
No, I don't know if we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they get involved much with what you're doing there, or they have a pretty hands-off approach, or how much input and what kind of input do you feel from them?
Well, I felt a lot more input in the past, and right now they're a bit hands-off with us, and I think that's an okay thing.
How long has Vandu been running itself?
It formed as an organization in 1998, and it was in the midst of the height of the HIV crisis. And
Wasn't that
people
also
were
the previous
dying.
fentanyl crisis with China White?
Probably.
Yeah, I think.
You would know that better than me.
Well, Anne was certainly involved in the unsanctioned supervised injection sites
Yeah.
the site that popped up and was fought against, and then fought those battles with City Hall, and then got them on side, and then helped
Yeah.
fight those battles in Ottawa and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, people
I'm
paid
not
out
sure
of
the
their pockets
exact
for the
timing.
rent for Vandu. That's
Like, I'm not sure the exact timing if Vandu had formed before that supervised injection site battle, or if it was as a result of it.
after.
But around that time, anyway, that was all
that
around.
was in 2003 for Insight, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, the genesis of Insight was
The
quite a while
unsanctioned
before they actually became Insight. You know, they were on down here, on the little storefront there, just keeping people alive. You know,
Totally.
the whole thing is that people were dying alone, just like with
Yeah.
this crisis, and that if people are supervised, then there's a really good chance that if they overdose, it cannot be a fatal overdose. That's why we don't call them safe injection sites. It's not about being a safe thing to do, because it's never safe to inject, even for doctors. There's always a risk. Safer, for sure. Safer by a doctor, safer in a hospital setting, safer.
But as far as I know, Insight has
supervised.
never had a fatality, and neither has Vandu.
That's right.
So
yeah, and
they do work.
they absolutely
Yeah.
do work, and that supervision is so important. And the supervision is important is because it's not safe. That's the whole point. And yet the government was so reticent to have anything to do with it, even at a city level to start with. But at the federal level, I mean, it's just been fight tooth and nails. Such. I mean, it's just so hurtful for me as a Canadian to see that. I don't know how you feel about it, but I guess I was brought up by parents who had, quite an ideology about, how government and police were your friends, and they were all just there to help us, and they
Well,
were,
in the 50s and 60s, it felt more like that, didn't it?
It did,
Yeah.
and I was so disillusioned as I, became an adolescent, and then
Right.
found out about, where freedom ended and began and stuff. But when I see what's happened with this particular group of people, and I hate to say these people, but there are people in our society that have been through stuff that we can't even imagine. That's what I came to understand. That the trauma of a child being terrorized by the loss of a parent, or by constant who knows what, and these things that happen to people, they are the ones that I was taught by my right-wing Protestant religious parents were the ones that Jesus would care the most about. You know what I mean? Like, that we as a society should really be very careful and gentle with these people. And then I come to have an experience on the downtown east side, and I see how they are treated. And as soon as they're identified by the police, they decide, oh, you're one of that population of people. Well, then all of a sudden they don't have the same rights at all.
Right.
And Vandu is an organization that spends a lot of time putting the spotlight on those things and advocating for change.
Yeah.
What are some of the actions that come to mind for you when I talk about this?
Before I get into that, I just wanted to say that when I first started working at Vandu, I thought, well, what do I have to offer? Anne said, you're kind. We're looking for somebody kind.
Right.
I said, well, I can do kind, but, is that going to go a long way? I don't know. Anyway, it took a few months, and I was sitting in a board meeting one day, and we were all talking and sharing things from our past and how we all happened to get together. And I realized that I had friends with kids who were on drugs and separated from them, and in pretty desperate ways. And I even dated a guy who was a drug user, pretty heavy opiate user. And I just realized I had more in common than I thought.
Right.
And I think the average person, even the people in the ministries and governments that are, definitely poo-poo on a lot of the programs that we run, probably neglect to check.
Yeah.
Like I did.
Probably don't realize how
and
much
have
they're
these
being
notions
touched
about
by
what
it.
it is to be a drug user. And I know drug users sometimes say that they choose this lifestyle, and I know what they mean by that because they've created a strong community for themselves. So they have that as an alternative, but I don't think anybody really chooses to go this route.
Most people don't choose to be ending up behind dumpsters,
and
putting needles in their arms,
Exactly.
Not at all.
Exactly. But we even
But
had,
they
we had
choose,
an electrician one
but
time
they
come
choose to continue to put the needle in their arm, even though it means that they're going to be behind that dumpster surrounded by garbage, because of things in their life that is their business. It's their decision what they do. It's our decision how we treat them as a society, and whether we help them or hurt them. And we talk about harm reduction. Vandu is a harm reduction place, because the model prior to Vandu and harm reduction was harm maximization. That's the model that Vandu fights, is let's hurt these people as best we can. We'll hurt them out of choosing to do those drugs. We'll hurt them, into choosing to work in ways that they can't and don't work for them. Will just hurt them anyway, even if they don't change. And it's an attitude that I have seen in the faces of policemen doing beatdowns, and I've seen in the faces of politicians explaining policy, where it's a better than them attitude and a they deserve to be hurt attitude. And it's the opposite is how we need to have our society run. We need people like you. We need people in government and in policing that are kind, that can look at those people and think, well, that could be my brother-in-law, that could be my cousin, that could be there, but for the grace of God, go me, you know?
I know some people can walk in and out of our door 1,000 times and not be touched, but they see it's a safe place, so that's a real boon.
Yeah.
And a real advantage for them.
Yeah.
But they may go in and out and not realize what more there is to offer. And what there is to offer, like I've seen people come in the doors and sit in one of our meetings, because all our programming is meetings.
Yeah.
And people learning how to conduct themselves, to speak in turn, to facilitate something, to
not hurt themselves.
Not hurt themselves, have a little break from the hustle and the bustle.
Yeah.
And they sit there and they listen, and something switches in them in some regard, like even if it's just laying off themselves in terms of how bad and wrong they feel. But to see, well, maybe it's not all my fault. Perhaps there's some systemic things going on that I'm not aware of that I can learn more about.
And they certainly learn that they're not
I can be a
alone.
little more.
They certainly learned they're not alone on the downtown
alone.
east side.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a biggie, isn't it?
It is, yeah, because a lot of times they do feel like they're alone and that nobody understands.
Yeah.
And there's an organization that understands. What are some of the groups, or all of them, if you can name the groups that are going on there?
I have no problem naming them all. Just
I got to
I'm
present to a number of them when we were putting together our project. So
they're very interesting groups. Well, on Monday, for instance, we have a group called EDGE, the East Vancouver illicit drug user group for education. And we invited them in because we saw they were in the same predicament we were, and they were on our curb, and the ambulance was coming a couple of times every day to take somebody away who'd fallen. And our people went away on a caravan around the province with a doctor from UBC, Alexis Crabtree, and she had a project in mind for herself, and she invited us along so that we could find who was around and who needed to feel together with somebody.
Right.
And they would call home at midnight every night and cry at how particularly Indigenous peoples were treated along the way. And people, they had like revival meetings. That's what it seemed like to the people that they were meeting. Or they'd ask them, "Are you the police?" Because they were pretty sure they must be the police because nobody had ever done this before.
Right.
And but they were so interested when they found out who they were talking to, and it was all people who were drug users just like them, or illicit drinkers just like them. But it was mostly drinkers they saw along the way, and so the executives said, we got to do something. So we pulled them in. Now they have their own meeting, and they're going great guns and
what sort of things are they doing with EDGE?
Well, they started right away doing guidelines for themselves in meetings because their meetings are quite boisterous, or at least they were. It could be kind of like gong shows. So they decided they needed some guidelines because they weren't
some
getting
structure
very
to their
far.
meetings.
Yeah, so it was this little break that they had from their drink. So this is a little break, a little oasis away from your drink, not for you. And that made a big difference for people. And then they started talking, and it was amazing how quickly people rose to the occasion of expressing themselves in a group, and even sometimes facilitating at the front of the room, or asking for a subject to be dealt with at another meeting.
And I would imagine there's personal stories of what's recently happened and other stuff like
stories.
that. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing stories.
So that's on Mondays?
That's on Mondays, and they've lost a lot of people. So they're very sensitive to...
Alcohol takes a lot of people too. They don't talk about that in society.
Very brutal.
It is, and the numbers aren't all that uncomparative.
The numbers are worse than... Sure. Well, I don't know now.
And there's a lot of secondary factors to alcohol that cause us a lot of damage in our society and families as well.
Yes.
So,
and drugs as well.
So is that the only group on Monday that meets?
That's the only group on Monday so far. And Tuesday we have an education group, an education and action group, and that's where people come off the street and they say what's happening on the street, and they can decide to make it a campaign as a full organization and create some actions.
So this would be like maybe if the police were cracking down on jaywalking or something like that, this would be identified as an ongoing, now this is increasing problem for people, and then what can we do about that?
Yeah,
that sort of
jaywalking
thing.
was a big one.
Yeah.
And even just traffic, we did a great big, like the whole organization did a project on, what was it called? Pedestrian safety.
Right. How fast the
we
cars
had
are
a
going
lot
there.
of in the 10 block area of which we're a part, there was like an amazing amount of pedestrian strikes in a week, and lots of people had been witness to some pretty terrible accidents.
So you guys are why it's 30 kilometers an hour through there,
Yeah,
and
we
it's
were
written on the
responsible for
streets,
that
and it's
screen.
big
Yeah.
signs all the way
Yeah,
through,
and the 30
and
mile
still
limit.
probably about 15 or 20% of the cars go buzzing through there like as if it wasn't 30
Yeah, they
kilometers
do,
an hour.
But I think the pedestrian strikes have stayed down to a great
Yeah,
extent.
there's a lot
which
more
we're very
cars that are
proud
going
of.
slowly through there for sure.
Yeah.
And I would imagine those that are zipping through are still paying a little more attention. You would hope.
And they do a lot of also, they've been campaigning with the Unistoten and now the Wet'suwet'en and the pipeline issues, and they've done a lot of actions with that.
Right.
And they've done a lot with the city and the Vancouver police cleaning up the gear people have on the streets and tents in the parks and those kinds of things, and
Right on. And
finding
so,
out what the rights are. And
is there anything else on Tuesday going on?
there used to be, well, there has been a Harm Reduction 101, which is a basic course, and the people in the room decide what the topics are going to be. And
So that'd be
they've-
about sharing needles and that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And
it's just like a course to have in the evening, so that it covers a different part of the day than just the daytime, because some people don't live in the day.
are you open 7 days a week at Vandu?
We're open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day
Right.
at this moment.
So what happens on
Sometimes
Wednesdays?
it changes. On Wednesdays, we have a group. It used to be called the BC Association for People on Methadone,
Right.
and they got together because methadone was quite a mess, and methadone maintenance treatment, which is its full term, was kind of disjointed and.
There's a lot of problems with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially for people in rural districts, we sometimes are lucky that we have this neighborhood to have these people in.
Right.
Because they have advantages of being together and being more intense and being a voice together too. So
What would be
yeah.
some of the other issues to do with the methadone group?
they had a whole bunch. In 2000, they formulated as a society, and they wrote their constitution on the basis of their requests. And they've
see.
they've changed and gotten maybe 3 or 4 of them done. And there's probably another 10.
I see. So there's some
10,
work to be
15
done,
to
but
do. Yeah. Well, we figured at one point the easiest win might be to work on the clinic fees so people who are on methadone in our city and our province had to pay a clinic fee. The clinic fee was designed to cover the costs of a therapist or whatever else. There was a number of different things that covered. So, but you didn't have a choice who the therapist would be if you needed or wanted a therapist. It had to be a particular person. So that kind of didn't work for folks. They didn't have any free range options and then there was a whole discrepancy. First Nations people were not supposed to be charged that clinic fee, and several of the people who were at Vandu and members there, they were Indigenous and they had status cards, but they were still being charged. So there was a whole bunch of discrepancies and all that, and this person was paying this much and that person was paying this much. And so we thought, well, of all the things, because they're big campaigns and big battles to fight, the energy that we had, we thought, well, we'll just start with the clinic fees. Well, it turned out to be a class action, and it was highly successful, and
very good.
people are getting the results of that.
Nice.
Now, so that was a really nice win for them, and they have switched to calling themselves the BC Association of People on Opiate Maintenance. So that's another success, because now there's a spectrum of drugs that are available to them in placement of
methadone,
heroin and
heroin, yeah.
morphine and the more higher intense drugs, and maintenance program, so that they're usually able to taper down if they want to taper down.
So how long would a meeting take, for example? No.
All our meetings are about an hour, because that's about as long as we can manage to have anybody have a break for an hour.
And that's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thursdays we show up with the
Yeah.
Cannabis Substitution Project.
And we're so glad you showed up. It was so great. It's been nice to
We
have you.
take 2 hours.
Yeah, and I've been listening in on the people you had on the show earlier today, and I have to say for myself, I was going to a dispensary and I was heartbroken when it closed
Yeah.
down, and I really loved it. I loved going there. It was special. It wasn't close to where I live or anything, but it was like a
There's
destination.
a lot of Canadians who also feel like that they're
Yeah,
heartbroken.
and I was well maintained on a tincture of
It's such a shame. We're
cannabinoid
going to try to do
oil.
something about that coming right up.
Yeah, good.
We've got. I want to talk more about you
Well, I'll do
and
Thursday.
your organization.
Thursday's an interesting day because the Cannabis Substitution Program does show up while we are in a board meeting. So
Right.
we always have 10 elected members to the board from the whole membership, and then each group, of which we had 5, they elect their own liaison. So then there's 5 other people that come onto the board, and they're
We've been
there
putting
for-
14 board bags together. I can see that should have been 15.
Yeah, well, it's because of deaths. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, usually 14 does it. When I go up there, I
Yeah.
have 14 bags.
So the leadership is not
There's a
immune
turnover of
to-
people. Yeah.
overdose, heart attacks, and all the different harms that stem from drug use and poverty.
Right.
But the board meetings are very intense. They're very interesting. They deal with
sure
a lot
are.
of things each meeting, and they meet 40 times a year, sometimes more. So they're a hard-working board, and
Yeah.
I'm really proud of them.
Yeah, I've come to know many of the people that have been on the boards over the last number of years that
Yeah.
I've been involved, and a lot of really good people
Yeah.
that find themselves in circumstance that could happen to just about any one of us.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
For
and they're not.
sure.
Nobody's perfect, and Vandu's not perfect, but we do the best we can.
yeah, well, you're
And
doing
so-
great things in a very imperfect world, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
If you want to see the lack of perfection in our society, just take a little cruise through the downtown east side any day of the week.
Yeah.
And
I'm very clear
know.
that people numb themselves in a lot of ways. You know, they're not always visible or not always as detrimental, but I think we're all doing the same
as
thing.
a human being, if there was just one person, that was in trouble that you saw on the street in your local little town, but there was one guy that was just struggling so hard, you wouldn't just drive by him every day and,
No.
think that he must have made bad choices in his life or
Right.
something,
Right.
And if it was one family, that was struggling in your little town, but here, it just seems too easy to just dismiss all these people, but they are, every one of them, somebody's son or daughter or uncle or grandparent or, and, we get to make some choices in our life, but most of the things that are who we are, we didn't tick a box off for. We didn't get asked, do you want to have this color hair? Do you want to have this kind of chin? Do you want to have this type of walk? Do you want to have this type of, there's a million things that are us that we didn't ask for.
No
We
kidding.
just are. And a lot of it's the environment that we're brought up in, and the schooling that we get, and the parenting that we get, and all that kind of stuff. And then just individual circumstance. I lived a pretty sheltered life, right-wing Protestant
Me too.
family.
Yeah.
But I lived on Nanaimo Street on 28th there. At the very top of it, our house looked down 28th. And at the end of 28th, like 3 blocks down, there was the church there on Victoria. And I went to that church. My grandfather helped build that church. And, my family actually went to other churches. But I went there once a week to their stockader program that they had for young people, where you kind of like Boy Scouts, but, just almost identical. One day, I'm walking home in the evening from the stockaders, and there's a fellow there that tells me he's in a little bit of trouble. He needs to get to the grocery store, and he can't see it because he's got bad eyesight and he doesn't have his glasses, and could I show him where it is? Sure, mister, and we walked and talked up to the top of Nanaimo, and then, well, there's the store right there. Well, he couldn't see it still, can you walk me down there?
Right.
Okay, well, got to tell my mom. So I ran in my front yard. I said, I'm going to help this guy find the store. And out I went to help him find the store. Store was only like 3 blocks down Nanaimo. Not there anymore. But on the way down, the conversation turns to, do you ever play doctor with your friends? And then I started, my spidey senses sharpened right up. And I was watching him close, and I could see he was holding a knife in his hand right there. And I said, oh, that's my mom calling. And I just turned and bolted back. I got in the house real quick, and I said, that guy had a knife that wanted to take me to the store. Well, my dad was out there. We searched for hours looking in every parked car down every alley, you know. But it could have been just that quick for me to have something traumatic happen in my life. And then who knows where you end up, you know. I lived a sheltered life with a strict father who liked to spank me every day because that's how he got along with my mom. Turns out mom really had angst against some of the things that I wouldn't quite obey the way she wanted during the day, and dad had to spank me when he got home from work every night. I clued in as a young adult that it was actually mom that caused all of that, and that dad really probably didn't want to spank me every day, but that's, you know, got to get along with mom. But, you know, I started smoking when I was 10 years old in this religious family. I got into all kinds of trouble. They moved out to Surrey to try to keep me out of trouble. I started drinking out there and, you know, drank like a fish until I turned 19 and did lots of drugs and smoked lots of things. And probably if it wasn't for my cousin making the National Hockey League, sending me some equipment to start playing at 13, I quit smoking cigarettes that day. You know, I could have easily been one of the people that were helping out, that are standing in the lineup there.
Substitution at 13.
Yeah. So anyway, my point just is that, you know, these poor people that find themselves in those situations, you can't blame them. You have no idea who they are and how they got there and what was right and wrong as they made their choices in life.
Yeah.
And our society really needs to stop blaming those people to justify a drug prohibition that is simply there to make people rich. Mm-hmm. And that's why I find it so disgusting, because it's all about money that keeps these people in poverty and keeps them being abused by the police and the very people that should be helping them. Yeah. So what happens on Fridays? Or is there anything else? Is there anything else that happens on Thursday?
Not much.
We come, we put on a very huge,
people
chaotic
lined up all
scene.
the way around the block, and the restaurateur where I go
And the
pick my
place is
lunch, he
full.
goes, "What's happening, Vandu? What's happening, Vandu?" I tell him every time, but I don't think he quite gets what's going on.
Yeah, we leave our mark, but I think we leave it fairly clean and with a bunch of happy, smiling faces behind us, and away we go.
People wait a long time for a lovely gift.
It's a good community gathering, I find. You know, in the first year that we were there, I had real issues with the lineup. That we were there once a week, every Saturday for that first year. And the lineup was kind of nasty at times. You know, we tried giving out joints early, you know, to try to calm people down. And every time somebody would ask to volunteer, I'd say, well, if you have a kind disposition, I kind of need people to just hang around and keep the line happy, you know. Yeah. And since then, though, we're into our fourth year. We completed 3 full years. Wow. The last 2 years, it's a real sense of community that happens there. I think all those people know each other, or at least 150 of them all know each other.
Same ones every Thursday.
Same one every Thursday and Sunday, yeah. So, but yeah, so Fridays.
It's amazing how fast a year goes. Eh?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe it's been going on this long.
Our Fridays are reserved for our Indigenous group. It's called the Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction Society, and we call them WARS. And
it's a long-time group.
A long-time group.
Yeah. And
they meet in the morning, they get everything ready, they have a meeting at 1 o'clock, and they have a healing circle after that.
Right. And they go out into the community, don't they? And they come
they have an outreach program that's funded by the city, and they've been doing that for a fair long time.
Right.
And maybe their city rent money.
Yeah, I had a lot to do with WARS back in the day as well. Chris Livingston and Suk Lee were founders of that group, and I remember
they were founders of another WARS, and that WARS ended.
That's again, right, and then revived itself. Chris was just talking about that the other day.
Chris is involved again.
Yeah,
goes around, comes around.
I used to. We had the herb school, and that's how I learned about how high dose edibles and cannabis can help people with opioids. I'd Main and Hastings there from 2005 until 2009, and I would go and present at the annual meetings of WARS about our project and what we were doing there. So I had some involvement with them back in the day, and a lot with Vandu as well. So what happens Saturdays now?
That's good. Saturdays is, well, we're trying to get a women's group started, but women aren't quite making a go of it, so I'm not sure how it will go. I think they need some assistance.
There's a good women's center, isn't there, down a couple blocks just to the right off.
That's the Downtown East Side Women's Center.
Yeah, they do really good work there as well. But I found that when we had the herb school there during the years I just mentioned, that there was a lot of women that were in a lot of distress down there, and they weren't getting proper services with respect to access to cannabis for sure. When they closed us down eventually, one of my big concerns was for the women that we were helping at the herb school, and where were they going to go now? And so we dropped off a number of donations to the women's center down there just to try to keep them in some supply.
That's great.
And then
well, I'll talk to you more about the women's group if it gets going.
And then Dave and Shannon, they kicked in with the Blue Door, and they started helping out people. Although I don't think that women are as much represented in their clientele as are there in need, I guess is how I would put that.
It would probably be the same with Vandu too.
Yeah,
I suspect.
It's tough for women on the downtown east side
that
are struggling with poverty and stuff. Very, very tough. They are so much more vulnerable than most men are. There are some men that really don't fend for themselves very well either, and they're taken a lot advantage of. But I mean, they're similar. But so many women, it is a very, very scary world, and
it's a very hard life.
Very hard life. So I'm glad that there's at least some impetus to put together a group for women there. You've had them in the past?
Yeah, we've had some very vibrant women's group, but they always seem to come to an end somehow. So we'll see. Maybe it's because of people changing.
It's always an ongoing thing, right? I mean, we talked about jaywalking. I mean, I'm sure that's an issue that's come up many times over the years about how the enforcement on that one issue. But many of these issues are ongoing. They keep coming back up.
I would like to see leadership come up from the women in the community.
Well, Lorna was the president for a while there, and
she was the president of WARS and the president of Vandu for quite a few years. And she's been running the OPS to a great degree, and I think she's done an amazing job.
But you're absolutely right. There could be a more female presence there for sure that would help, and maybe help more women feel comfortable to come there as well. And what have because at the women's center, I don't think they allow men. Pretty much, I don't think men don't. They let me through the door with my bundles of weed for them, but it was I was made to know that was a very special thing. That you're a man and you're through the door. That's not happening for the most part. Okay, this one time or when it's you, but there's a lot of safety there. But there needs to be that for sure. So
on Saturday we have a group called SNAP. It had another name before, but I'm hard pressed to figure out what it was.
What does
you
SNAP
always
do?
think you're going to remember. It's the Salome Naomi Association of Patients. So early on in the 2000s, there was a heroin prescription program called Naomi.
Right.
And it ended with no exit strategy for the people that were participants in that for about a year.
That's why
and they all came off and had to go right back on the street and hustle. And
it was really working too. The reports I got on that.
They were doing really great, and they had very positive results and very negative.
And a negative end to it, for sure.
Inhumane. I can't even hardly talk about it.
Yes, I understand.
But Ann Livingston and Dave Murray were talking one day, and because there was talk of the Salome Project coming up. It was another heroin prescription program. And we thought, well, my gosh, can't just let this happen without any input. So Dave set to finding the people that were in the first program. He could only find a dozen. I don't know of how many, something like 52 comes to mind. And they were very frail human beings. And they came to meetings, and they met with him every week, with him and Susan Boyd, a sociologist from the University of Victoria.
Susan does great work. Got a book you should buy.
Participated, and they put together with these people the most amazing recommendations. And they presented them at SFU campus at the David Mohagin Center at W2. And the Hungarian Civil Liberties Union people were there. They were there with their cameras, and they filmed the whole thing. And they sat at the front of the table, and they just talked about what they recommended anybody who was wanting to do a heroin prescription program. And they were very clear, lovely. They had a little booklet, and I thought it was an astonishing night. And the Salome Project came into existence, and when they staggered people onto their program, staggered people off their program, which was a really good strategy.
A better way
but
to do it.
still, when the people came off, the first people to come off were Vandu members, thank God, because we went nuts. There was still no exit strategy.
Right.
After all that, it was like, oh no. So then came a great big fight, and the people fought for an exit strategy for the people that were coming behind them who were exiting off the program.
Is that still happening, or is that program also finished now?
That finished.
Is there another one coming down the pike?
Haven't heard.
What are they talking about with SNAP at this point? Is it just a support group for people that were there, or is there...
It's a support group, and well, they were really, they're the beginnings of all that. SNAP was, they set up all these other, because at the time when they got what they wanted, they weren't getting a heroin prescription. They were getting prescription A for Dilaudid, or for hydromorphone, or for, I can't remember if they were, but those two. And hydromorphone didn't work for David Murray particularly. I don't think he would mind my saying. And he was sick every day, and trying to maintain himself on this drug that didn't do it for him.
Right.
I think then they switched him over to the other, and that worked a little better. And later on, they took better care of him.
What do you think they're trying to do? Are they trying to switch over to some pharmaceutical that they can continue to have patents on and make money on? Is that the driving force behind the things they want to substitute people onto?
I don't know why they can't just give what they need.
What they want, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be that hard. The street dealers figure out how to get it for them.
Can't be that hard, no.
Yeah.
No, it's...
Crazy. And then again on Sunday, we're back to the Cannabis Substitution Project.
You're the only thing. You're the headliner on Sunday.
Yeah. we got 2 days.
Well, it's really, I think it's maintained our people in terms of pain relief particularly. Like, I think that's always a hole in the
We're
works.
about to change, you know that. I've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah,
we're in negotiation to take over a storefront just down the street.
Yeah.
We'll be directing everybody to come and see us there. But we're going to have some sort of a communication back and forth. We're going to have to continue to look after the board or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But we want to have a better exit strategy than they've had for that Naomi project,
Well, leave a hole.
We want to make sure, like, we're going to be available probably 6 days a week, if not 7 days a week at our storefront, and it's only going to be a couple blocks down the street. So, hopefully there'll be proper signage, and people that would normally come on a Thursday or Sunday will just be able to come down and see us at the storefront.
And I'd like to see education on cannabis and cannabinoids.
That's going to be a big part of what we do now.
Sativa, and so much
we talk to all the people in the lineup.
To know.
As best we can. And then when they have questions, we answer them. And I make sure if it's somebody I don't recognize that we give them our spiel about, don't eat too much and da-da-da. But now we're really shifting gears to in our new place. We're going to be able to have time to spend with the people that are there. We're going to have a lot of education will be a big part of a big component of our operations. So that's very exciting. So that's the whole week at Vandu. That's amazing.
It is. It's a heavy week.
So you guys had a lot of actions. I asked you this earlier. Is there something that comes to mind that has really changed things or helped really get media attention to things? I know that they walked into city council carrying coffins, and there was a whole bunch of crosses put up in the park, and there's other things like that.
Yeah.
Just if there's any of those that really made an impression on you as something that really worked or made a difference.
Well, the very first, when Bud Osborne went to the Richmond, Vancouver, what was it called? The Health Board, I guess it was called at that time. Mm-hmm. And he just really let them know how it was in the downtown east side, and somehow they got it. So it was him. He had a very genteel.
Is that when Philip Owen was the mayor here?
I think so.
Because Philip went through quite a change.
Yeah.
Philip went from a hardcore, stigmatizationist, I guess I would call him, to somebody that really did kind of get it about.
Yeah, he instituted the four pillar program.
Yeah, which was good, although I certainly always had a problem with the enforcement component there. I don't think
Well,
we
yeah.
need to have that in there. I think there needed to be more of an education
Well, it was
component
really
than
a
there
2
was.
or 3 legged program anyway.
Enforcement just mucks things up. You know, you got.
Well, there was a
there's
time
gotta
when
be
we
better
all
ways.
seemed to work together, and the whole neighborhood was kind of working, and all the services were trying to house people and get them to doctors. You know,
So it was
and
better
the developers
than it
came.
is now. When, like, how long ago would have that been that you felt that we were doing things better?
I don't know, maybe till the 2003, 4, something like that.
And then there's been a decline since then. And
Well, and I came in 2009, and I think the tides were starting to change then already.
right.
Yeah.
And is that based at the government level? Is that the Vancouver Council where that originates?
I think a whole
or-
bunch of factors, like I think developers started coming in, the city had other priorities, it seems, and
Development hurts
you never know
people.
what's affecting, don't know all the factors that are affecting. Like even with VCH, I know that a lot of the people that work the front lines are for this, and then it grows in and they enroll the people that are higher up, and then the cold wind comes down, and we're never sure where it's coming from. But it's the same. Right now we're having a problem with crack because we can't get pipes. So we started getting our own pipes when I first came to town to Vandu, and we would sell them for a couple of dollars a piece, and the people were happy to pay that.
And why can't you get them now?
Well, the VCH took it over, and they started issuing them and helping and distributing free ones. So they wanted to make sure that people were more safely smoking crack and not getting the burns on their mouth and using screens instead of what do you call that, steel wool, because people were getting Brillo lung and lots of harms that were looking pretty bad. And they were very helpful, and I know that we went a couple of times to VCH, and we had a rock group, and it was the most lively vociferous sharing.
By rock group, you don't mean a musical band.
No, I mean using people who use crack cocaine.
Right? Mm-hmm. The rock group.
But it was a very animated group, and we were sad we had to shut it down because we lost the funding to that within about 6 months. So I think it was because we're having too good a time.
Something just sparked to memory here was I was in Edmonton on one of the Freedom Tours and doing something in front of City Hall there with a megaphone. And when I finished speaking on the megaphone, this fella came up to me and he said, I got 6 months to live and I want to do some crack. What do you think about that? I said, it's your life, sir. You should be able to do whatever you want. Don't let me tell you what you should or shouldn't do. And he said, exactly. I've lived the last, my whole life I've been upset about people telling me what to do. I was born that way. And I always kind of rebelled against that. But, I've spent a long time railing against bullies. As I said, when I left my parents' house, I thought I was going to be free, and I found out that no, I live in a society full of these bullies with badges and with titles and robes and hats and things, and they get to tell me what to do now, and they're serious too. But it just mucks things up so bad. I guess I want you to tell me...
What, bullying?
Sorry?
Are you speaking about bullying now?
I'm talking about governments that decide on some sort of moral or ideological ground, although really it's always about profits, that they're going to tell us we can or cannot do things, that, it's causing us so much trouble.
But power corrupts, so it happens even in Vandu, in the hierarchy of Vandu.
Absolutely.
We notice it there too, so it's
My
everywhere.
rant at the beginning of the show.
It's not just the government.
No, absolutely. It's a kind of good way to wrap things up here a bit, is that, we can't trust government. Power corrupts, as you say. And they're supposed to be public servants. We're paying them. Yeah. But the opportunity for corruption has just been there all the time. And trusting governments has just meant that governments get to, pass laws that are not in our favor. And it goes on and on and on.
I call that the hum-hum.
The hum-hum.
Mucky muck.
It's like every time we elect in a new group of people to tell us they're going to do it better, they keep all the things that benefited them that the last group put into place, and then they put in a bunch of other stuff that benefits them. They just keep making laws and laws and laws.
But it's up to the citizenry to be really vigilant and vociferous and call them on it and do the same with ourselves at the same time. Yeah.
That is exactly what Vandu is and does.
Yeah. But it's easy to let somebody else do it. Like I don't even notice with our board, the membership is good. He's going to do it. Now I can go home and watch TV.
Of course.
Or whatever.
Of course, we take the easiest way to whatever.
The membership sometimes very easy on the board, and it would be good if they felt that they could hold the accountability and ask for it. And
you have victories as you go, right?
Sure.
And as any corporation will tell you, if you're in sales, that you need to chart your victories. Chart your sales and build on them and keep them present so that you don't lose the emphasis and the momentum. But that is exactly what you guys are, is a voice for the people that are voiceless, that really feel voiceless.
Yeah.
And just having you there, I know, gives so many people just a little more sense of security than they would have without you guys there. Right?
Hope so. Yeah.
Oh, I know so.
Yeah.
I know so. And you've touched a lot of people as an organization in Vancouver over the last couple of decades, but you've done way more than that. I mean, you guys are in communication with a whole bunch of other similar groups in similar places. I've, as people have said, how can I get a cannabis substitution project going? I say, well, find the user group. And if there is no user group, then make one. Yeah. And call Vandu. And I've had, numerous people I've given the phone number to call you guys and to consult about how do we start a user group, because we've got a problem. We've got people that are really being minimalized and harmed by policy, and they have no voice.
Yeah. So. We did a lot of work with Victoria, with Abbotsford, Surrey, Nelson.
The Yukon?
The Yukon. Well, we always had trouble. Well,
it's so far away.
There's one there and one there, and it's hard to.
But they still have a group that grew out of Vandu that takes part in things and does do some things
in the Yukon.
There. In the Yukon.
Oh.
Okay, maybe you know more than me about that.
No, maybe you know more than me.
Well, this is what I'm told.
It's hard
is
to
that,
say.
Vandu has tentacles that have reached a lot of different places.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have liaisons
and you put on different conferences in different places. And
actually, when I first started at Vandu in 2009, we had the BC Summit, the Pacific Summit of Drug User Health, and we had 100 people come from all over the province, and we
put up in hotels.
Put up
with
in
stipends
a hotel.
Yeah.
And it was quite shocking, actually.
And many others have come since then.
They could not believe what they were hearing. Like, they heard the history of Vandu, and they heard all kinds of things. They heard what it was, the Constitution, and they were just like, whoa. It was like, and to be in a hotel, somebody's calling me to be in a hotel to tell what I know. Somebody's interested in what I know.
Exactly.
What I've observed, what I've experienced, and
that's so powerful.
Wow.
That Vandu has been able to give that voice to so many people through so many of these different events. I've seen it myself, and I've seen the people grow.
That was the birth of the BC Yukon Association of Drug War Survivors, which is the whole provincial.
Yeah, and it's become a very respected group.
Totally.
So,
totally. And they now have an office in New Westminster.
I remember when they were just talking about it, and then I remember it forming and all the rest of that, and to see where it's come from now. Like I say, the world would not be anywhere near as friendly a place without Vandu for those people that struggle with poverty and addiction and government policies that oppress those groups.
Yes.
It's such an important place for sure. Yeah. I know I can't thank you enough for allowing us to come there and do what we do with the Cannabis Substitution Project.
Wow. It's been a great fusion.
We probably would have had a lot of trouble without you. Right. I mean, you're where I went right off the bat, because I knew there was some security there. That if I could get you to allow me to present to City Hall with your, support, which would happen there, the board gave me unanimous support to do that, and then even without any acknowledgement from City Council to allow us to be within your space, we're pretty much untouchable there with what we're doing. I know that there was another time in 2009, that was when you started there. Were you there when I set up the Green Project, and I had, I think, your office and I was dispensing cannabis to people.
It must have been just before.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think just before that. I was asked to come and do a green project, and we put together some papers where people could sign to take back their medical autonomy and their personal autonomy for decisions, and that they could access different strains and things. And we had that going on for about 3 weeks, and then we got shut down because of Coastal Health threatening to pull the funding because we were there.
Yeah, that's the cold wind I was talking about.
Yeah, so that happened. And then here we are, it's whatever year we started this, 2016, I think, when we started with the Cannabis Substitution Project. And right away I had people in the lobby rolling joints, and we had this table set up, and we're handing out cannabis to people. And I just thought to myself, yeah, let's see them stop me now. And the opioid crisis going on, people are dying, this is an answer. Let's see them stop us now. And they certainly haven't. Unfortunately, they also haven't come and visited me at any point in time to ask me about things. And I've poked them a little bit. And, at Coastal Health, I've talked to their frontline people and said, you know what we're doing, right? And you guys aren't in favor of it necessarily. And if you're not in favor of it, don't you think you should be coming down and checking it out? Like, if you think this is a problem for people to get high dose edibles, like they testified in front of council that day, that was so disgusting. I think you were there and heard what they had to say about, we don't need to have cannabis on the downtown east side. It's dangerous. It's a vulnerable population. And by the way, said Dr. Daly, there's plenty of cannabis available for people on the black market down there. I couldn't believe she would say that. I was so shocked. But that's who was doing some of the guiding of Coastal Health in their policies of not helping us. But anyway, it's been quite a run for us. It's been quite a run for you. Are you optimistic about the future? Do you think that we can turn the tide the other way and get some recognition? I feel
like there's a shift in the wind. So I don't know whether it's just for us at Vandu or whether it's...
You're one of the main temperature takers at Vandu, so if you're feeling that...
There's a shift in the wind, so I say keep going.
Yeah,
don't give up.
I mean, I feel it with what we're doing with the Cannabis Substitution Project.
Even public opinion, I think, there's a shift with public opinion. And
that's what I'm trying to achieve, and that's what I'm hoping I'm getting across on this show here today.
One time a man came to do our electrics. He was recommended by a friend of a friend of a friend, and he was wonderful to me, but I just noticed he was funny with our people. And I called him over at one point and I said, you don't have to do this job. You could recommend me somebody else if you're uncomfortable around drug users or people who are smell or... Yeah. And he just looked at me and tears were spurting out of his eyes. And he said, it isn't that, Marion. And I said, well, what is it? Because I just noticed you're all red in the face and you just look angry. And he said, it's my sister. Her boy is taking drugs and she calls me and cries to me and wants me to do something. And what can I do? I'm powerless. He said, I'm heartbroken. I'm powerless. So I think that some people keep their opinion here to protect them.
Exactly.
So you just have to keep going until you make a break or a little crack or...
And my hope is that down the road, because of organizations like Vandu and people like yourself, we have a kinder, gentler world in the future, and we respect those people whose struggles have been harder than ours and unknown to us in the future. That's what I'm hoping for. We don't get there without you.
No, and we can't see those waves that you create. You don't know where they're going to...
You never know who you're helping when you're helping somebody.
We live in a crazy world.
We do. Thank you so much for all your efforts in making Vandu a kind place for people to come, and for taking the time today to tell our viewers about...
We're so happy you'll be with us for another few weeks, whatever it takes.
Yeah, we're not going too far away.
No,
and
good.
You guys will all know where to find us.
Yeah.
So, and it's a big part of history that you've been a part of with what we're doing on our end, but much more than that, what you're doing with the whole broader picture of how drug use is viewed by the public, how people who choose to use drugs are viewed by the public.
Yeah.
It's very important work that needs to be done, because this whole prohibition of drugs, stigmatization of the drug users, and the demonization is why we have so many of our sons and daughters and brothers and sisters struggling the way that they are because there aren't the services and the help that should be there for them. If we just realize that these are the abused children of our society, these are the people we should be most compassionate with, and that to provide housing for people is way cheaper than to have them on the streets and costing us in so many other ways. And all of those different issues that you guys look after, that I'm so glad that you're there to do that and to give us a way to help with that. So,
and thanks for providing more choices for our folks. The more
That's
alternatives
the thing,
they have, the better.
That's the thing. They should have choices.
Yeah.
People should have choices, and their
empowering.
decisions should be respected.
Totally.
Totally. Thanks, Marion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see.
It's a beautiful day, hey Neil?
That's right.
It's a beautiful day here, isn't it?
Beautiful day today. The lineup's a little shorter. It's the day after Welfare Day. Of course, it grows as we go. We're still about another 20 minutes away from starting the giveaway, and it'll be longer by that time.
Getting your package right now, and we're getting it a little bit early for you because you got cancer, right?
These are high dose.
Yes, I have those before.
This is high dose edibles for Tommy here. He's got cancer, and we're getting it to him for a little bit earlier, and it really helps you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, big time. Big time. And I found out too, you have to use a dark juice. Lots of dark juice. Grapes, blackberries, blueberries.
Yeah.
This morning I had one and geez, my bowels are working, so it helps. And this really helps.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I cannot go to the bathroom for days, and when I have this, it takes the pain away and it calms me down and just helps. It helps a lot.
It's a busy hub of activity here. Cannabis Substitution Project with Neil Magnuson at the helm.
How you doing?
He's dishing out all kinds of stuff here.
CBD?
I'm very fine, thank you. I
Good.
appreciate you handing out cannabis. I use it to make me relax, take my anxiety, keep me off of drugs, like other drugs.
Okay.
And I really enjoy smoking weed. It's healthy. It's God gives it to you. You don't destroy it. You can eat it, smoke it, wear it.
Picked up some doggy treats for your doggy.
Yes.
Where are they?
They're right here.
They're right there?
Yeah, these are CBD dog treats, and my dog absolutely loves them,
Yeah.
and I absolutely love giving them to him because he suffers with irritable bowel disease, and I find these CBD treats help calm his stomach and give him a little ease when he feels all bloated and not feeling too good.
Hi, how you doing? You're down here at the Cannabis Substitution Project, and you get your cannabis?
Yeah.
It helps you a lot, right?
Yeah.
How does it help you?
I usually use heroin, to be honest. I usually use heroin.
Okay.
But I'm using cannabis instead.
It helps me with all my chronic pain and helps me get up and take care of business and stay straight.
You're in the lineup here with the Cannabis Substitution Project, and cannabis helps you. Is that true, my friend?
That's a fact, yeah.
Yeah, how does it help you?
In a lot of ways. My stomach, eating, sleeping, keeps me from dreaming.
Wow.
And you don't want to dream.
Yeah. You're a veteran, sir, is that correct?
That's right.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
How does cannabis help you, my friend?
Oh, it helps me get through the day with my back pain.
Okay. So this is important to you for sure.
Yeah, and it keeps me away from drugs.
Hey, this is all good.
The main thing.
Yeah.
I don't need to take drugs.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and thanks to Jerry Provost for doing those interviews and providing us with that footage. That's very good of him. Just a sprinkling of many of the people that were helping there at Vandu and with the Cannabis Substitution Project. So many people that are just good people dealing with bad circumstance that could happen to anybody, as we talked about on the show. Some really good developments with the Cannabis Substitution Project. We've been talking about the society that we've now formed. By the way, in case any of our viewers are new to the show and don't know what the Cannabis Substitution Project is, we give out cannabis in the form of high-dose edibles in care packs to a few hundred people twice a week from the offices of Vandu on the downtown east side to help people offset the use of opioids and street drugs and for their overall wellness and things like that. And there's a bunch of donators that help us with that, and I can't thank them enough, and I don't want to list them all here, but there are so many. Apothecary Labs are the ones who give us the doggy treats that Shauna had there and I was showing you. And Black Creek provides our bakers with butter to use. And Twisted Extracts are so generous in providing jelly bombs for people. And we have an anonymous gummy maker who's been with us for almost a full 3 years that continues to provide us with gummy balls for people. And so many other groups that have been helping us along the way. I just took a trip to the island this past week, and we got some generous donations there. The Harmony Collective, I want to give them a shout out for helping us out with some donations. Some of the growers there on the island have been putting stuff together for us. That's really popular, or really positive. It's certainly popular with us. We were having some trouble with the donations, and the trip to Victoria helped a lot. There was another anonymous island friend who I want to thank a lot for his help as well. And as I mentioned, we started a society to be the umbrella group for the Cannabis Substitution Project. That's the Serious Hope Society. And I'm very thrilled with the people that are involved with that and the potential that we have as a group. We went over to the island, thanks in part to Twisted Extracts for helping with some of the costs of that trip. And we visited with the Cannabis Substitution Project that's been running over in Victoria for about the last 2.5 years. One of the board members from Vandu here took the idea that we were doing here over to Victoria. And Jack Phillips, his wife Paige, and the people over there took that under their arm and ran with it and got out ahead of us pretty quick. In a little bit of a smaller city where the city will pay attention to what you're doing, they had to deal with the city, and they did a really good job of that. And they got the city on board with them. They got the police on board with them, and they've also managed to get Patty Haydu on the provincial government on board. She's the health minister, and they're operating a study that's been approved to find out, how cannabis works. We got the same thing going on over here with Dr. M.J. Malloy at UBC, who's been conducting similar research. And we're going to be included in that study that's going on in Victoria there with our Cannabis Substitution Project here. We're in negotiation to open a storefront very quickly, and we will have low barrier access to good quality cannabis, high dose edibles, and the rest of it to address the opioid crisis. We're going to be producing cannabis for our members, 4 plants per members in a cooperative situation, and in a Health Canada compliant facility, but not complying with Health Canada's regulations on producing cannabis, because that's non-medical cannabis, and we want to produce cannabis that is good, clean, organic, and safe and healthy for people. So we've got all of those sorts of things going on. We're also in a partnership with some other dispensaries that we're operating in Vancouver, the best ones that were here at the time. We have testing equipment to make sure that we can test all of the cannabis if that's a concern, although I will say that the Cannabis Substitution Project has been demonstrating for the past 3 years that you don't need to test your cannabis. We take cannabis from whatever source is donated to us over the past 3 years, and there's never been a problem, and we've hurt no one. But still, to show that we're good, responsible citizens of the community, we have the testing equipment in place, and we have a Health Canada certified technician to run that equipment. And so for those reasons and numerous other reasons, I guess they start with we're saving lives and they end with we're hurting no one. There's a whole bunch in between where we feel that the CSU will not have the opportunity to interfere with us and that they won't interfere with us. And in fact, what we're going to set up in the way of this dispensary will be a model that can be copied and used in other municipalities across Canada and in other places across this city here as well, and hopefully around the world, where people need to have access to good quality cannabis and in a medical setting as a storefront like we're talking about. So that's what's going on with the CSP. We don't know how much longer we're going to be at Vandu, but it shouldn't be too much longer, and we'll be able to announce that we have a storefront and give you the address for that, and come on down and see us, because we want people to come. We want people to come that are struggling, that are in need, that we can help with our Cannabis Substitution Project, so that we can give you people and those people what they require to help them in their lives, and to not allow them even the thought of using other drugs that would be harmful and risky. And we want people to come that are healthy and financially healthy and want to support what we're doing, because we're going to need that support as well. So everybody should come on down. Don't use the government stores, use our stores. And coming soon, hopefully, to this neighborhood, and not too long down the road to a neighborhood near you, it's time that we get a return to medical cannabis dispensaries in this country. They are crucial to so many people in everybody's family that can use cannabis in place of harmful pharmaceuticals and to deal with all sorts of things, from pain to depression to insomnia to many, many other things. So that's what's going on with that. For coming events this year, or this week, we do have, where did I put that now? There it is. We were just talking about that there's the Calgary Cannabis Expo coming up on March 26th and to the 29th, 28th and 29th. Let me get that right. 28th and 29th. $10 for a ticket. It's going to be at the BMO Center. And the good folks in Calgary, I'm sure, will put on a heck of a show for everybody that comes and supports them. 420 is still in the works. Landlord is here. How you doing, Landlord?
Hey, my canoe, I left it somewhere.
You want to join me for a quick puff here?
Hey,
I'm just saying goodbye to the folks here.
Oh, 420. That's like my Christmas, eh?
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, hopefully it'll be a good time.
Hopefully the weather is good, yeah.
We're monitoring what's going on with the local health crisis, or not the local, but the world health crisis. And we, of course, will do the responsible thing, whatever that is. But in the meantime, we're going forward and hoping for a wonderful event. So there's still a few booths available. They are selling faster this year than the previous couple of years. So if you want a booth, get on that fast. And if you can't get a booth, but you want a booth, there's a lot of areas that we allow people to set up, or we don't allow. It's just public property. Come on down, set up a booth. We're not going to bother you. And we're actually going to help you if you need help getting your booth set up. And so that's what's going on. There's volunteer meetings for 420 that are happening, usually weekly. Stay tuned, and not just stay tuned, but you can go to Vancouver420.com and find out about all that kind of stuff, and a whole bunch of other good information at that site as well. Where's that puff going on here? How are you doing, Landlord?
Okay, no problem. I'm working. Last Friday, the doctor says I don't need to take as many pills no more heart operation, thanks to medical marijuana. That's the biggest defeat for me, and I started work. Can't wait to get that first paycheck, out of the part-time work, better than nothing, but yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, the doctor gave me the healthy thumbs up.
You got your outfit for 420 ready?
I was going to see Jody. I'm going to get a new one.
You got the big sunglasses? You're not wearing them today, but you can have those.
No,
for sure.
I don't got my bling on. I was just out incognito today.
All right.
420 Vancouver, not Vancouver
420vancouver.com.
40 days and 22 hours and 34 minutes.
I bet you if you put it in the other way, it would still come up, but you never know. Don't bother doing that. 420vancouver.com. So yeah, that's kind of it for the show today. I want to thank my guests, Glenn and Jerry, for coming on, for Marion from Vandu for coming on, to Pot TV and Cannabis Culture for allowing me to use this space, to Neil for helping me produce the show. There's a bunch of other shows that happen at Cannabis Culture here in Pot.tv. We have on Monday the Carly Marley BC Bud Gal 420 Lifestyle Show. I just increased the name of their show there. But tune in to see how much fun you can have with a lifestyle using cannabis and get up to date in a fun and entertaining way with those girls. And then on Wednesday, we've got From Under the Influence with Greg Williams and his take on what's going on in the world and just how ridiculous these stupid laws and regulations are and what they call legalization. If it was legalization, they wouldn't need to have police task forces and CSUs and all these other things going on. This is not the legalization that we asked for. If you want to see what kind of legalization we asked for, come on out to 420, and that's the kind of thing they should be legalizing, is everything that's going on there. And most of what goes on there is not legal in this world of so-called legalization. So tune into Greg's show every Wednesday and check that out. Jeremiah Vandermeer has his Cannabis Culture News live on Fridays at 4 p.m. And he'll get you up to date on everything happening both with 420 and the entertainment part of cannabis, but also in the news world of cannabis and all the things that are happening there. On Saturday, it's Boss Lissa with High Noon at 12 noon. That's been going on for so long that they're well over 100 shows now. And good on them for that, and always something good to do on a Saturday at high noon is to check out what's happening here at Cannabis Culture with Boss Liz, and I'm sure she'll tell you all about High Score and the other things that happen in this building. And then there's me again on Tuesday with the THC show, Truth, Hope, and Change. I hope we exposed some of the truths you weren't aware of on the show, so it wasn't a complete waste of time. I hope we didn't leave you hopeless, because there are things we can do about this, and if you look into how you can make some change, I'm sure you can figure out how to make some change, and we all need to do a little bit of that. So thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, have as much fun as you can.
The entire new industry is built upon the prohibition. Our oppressor, the government, along with the cops, came up with legalization. Why do I care about what they came up with? I didn't give a fuck about their laws that they had on the books when it was illegal. Well, but my belief is that cannabis has not hurt anyone.
Even bad cannabis.
And most of what I have seen of cannabis consumption for fucking all these years has been done in a completely, utterly unregulated industry. No rules whatsoever. No rules. For all this time, no one's been hurt. What in God's name would make one think that we need rules?
Or a whole bunch of them, you know.
Hey, wait a second. This is going along perfectly. We need rules. They threaten me to come on board. Threaten me. Oh my God, how childish. How insulting. I'm a fucking adult who likes cannabis. We've learned to have a lot of fun around cannabis here because we like it. That's
whole network based on
the
it.
celebration of cannabis is because we like it. What do you think? This is all fucking made up? Till we see you next time. I'm Marijuana Man.
Peace.
Peace, pot, and boycott.
Hi there. Welcome to the 420 Lifestyle Show. I'm Carly Marley. She's taking a dab. Thanks.
We can play the Sycamoose video.
Oh yes, Sycamoose video. Let's play the Sycamoose video.
That's like all over the place, I guess.
It helps the speaker lead his audience into the scene he describes.
Oh, I'm rolling up the fattest joint I could possibly fit in this paper. If it was any bigger, it would explode.